Discover how to grow your business with a mastermind group in today's episode with Jeremy Shapiro. Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. Jeremy Shapiro is a facilitator in the Bay Area Mastermind, and he's a mentor and coach, and he helps founders connect, grow, and scale along their journey to entrepreneurial freedom through structured mastermind groups. Now, the first question is, what is a mastermind group and how can it help an entrepreneur to grow his or her business?
Well, as an entrepreneur, it's lonely at the top, right? Who do you share your biggest challenges with? Who do you share and celebrate your biggest successes with? So in a mastermind group, you are surrounded by like-minded, growth-focused individuals who are on that same entrepreneurial journey that you're on. But what's really cool about this is everyone's seeing success in their own way. So you might be an expert in one particular sales channel or process in your business, but have a weak spot in yours that for somebody else is their area of genius or expertise. And so by surrounding yourself with these like-minded individuals, not only do you get the inspiration and ideas that you need to pivot and grow, you also get the help you need to get unstuck, and you get folks who are on that journey to support you with any challenges and setbacks you experience along the way.
Thank you. What drew you to the concept of masterminds, and how did your journey kind of lead you onto leveraging masterminds to grow your business?
Well, I've been part of mastermind groups for a few decades now, and they've always been so valuable to me in terms of discovering new ideas, seeing what's next, and where the opportunities exist in my business and my life. So I've been parts of groups where you write a 5 to 6 figure a year check just to be in a room in some cool exotic destination and connect with others about what's really going on. And the pivots that have come from that have at times launched multi-million-dollar businesses, have helped unstick and unblock plateaus I've faced in business, and so much more. So seeing how valuable those kinds of groups were to me in my business, that really led to this idea of taking the best of the best practices from the different kinds of mastermind groups that are out there and putting together what we have at the Bay Area Mastermind, which is a meeting cadence of once a month to really deep dive and work on your business instead of spending your day working in your business.
Thank you. What are some of the key benefits that entrepreneurs can expect from joining a mastermind group?
Yeah, so what I think is so interesting is when people test drive a mastermind group and try it out one time, there's really two big categories of knowledge that they bring with them into the room, right? The first is what you know you know. This is your area of genius. This is your expertise, the stuff that you're really, really good at, right? That's where you can lend experience and help to others. The second big thing, and this is usually what draws folks to a group, is the area of knowledge of what you know that you don't know. This is where you feel blocked. This is the big burning question you have that you feel if only you could get an answer to that question, could you get unblocked and move forward in your business? It's what keeps you up at night. But when you've got a big question, you can look for answers. You can search online, you can find books and courses, you can seek out experts and mentors, right? You can get answers to your big questions. But the real growth, all those big pivots and aha moments I see, actually come from this third category. That's the unknown. That's the things you didn't know. So how do you find out what you don't know you don't know? This is where a mastermind group helps out our members again and again, is by others sharing what's going on in their business, sharing what's working and what's not. That's where you find out about the pitfalls ahead. That's where you find out about the blind spots in your own business. That's where you discover the hidden opportunities you had no idea existed right in your very own business that you simply didn't see because those blinders that we all have on in our own business. And so a mastermind group really helps out members to discover what they didn't know, to get unstuck and celebrate their big wins.
Thank you. What's the structure of a successful mastermind groups? The reason I ask is because I used to have one, and I remember how difficult it was to create a structure that actually works for everyone. Because, for example, let's say someone in the group has really high goals for their business. And then, Pedro in the same group has, much smaller goals, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, I don't fit in here. It's like, this dude is like, he's, nothing compared to me, or you know what I mean? So people can have so many varied expectations from a mastermind, and they can switch off like that. So I wonder about this.
It's a really good question. And your experience, I think, speaks to some concerns folks have about finding that right group. The answer to a number of those items you mentioned comes down to professional and expert facilitation, right? And that's not something you see in sort of a self-organized group. And we see mastermind groups get together that are calling themselves mastermind groups, whereas really they're more what I would call like coffee shop groups or accountability groups where you hop on a phone for 30 to 90 minutes once a week. And you really can't dive deep. And you can find that one member can dominate that conversation. Or you might find that people get input from the group on questions that they didn't have and they weren't looking for help with at the expense of getting the help they need. So expert facilitation does a few things. One, it helps to curate the right folks for the room. There are a number of different things that you don't want a member bringing into the room because it can be disruptive, right? On the other hand, there are certain characteristics and qualities you do want in a member. For example, someone who's willing to be open and share what's really going on in their life and business, who's willing to be vulnerable and share openly and be open and receptive to feedback that's coming in, right? Like those are valuable things you do want in a member. Along those same lines, you also want to curate a diverse range of businesses in terms of business models and business types and industries, but similar size businesses in terms of revenue, growth points and so on. So for example, at the Bay Area Mastermind, we look for lifelong learners, right? So people who are actively reading, going to courses, educating themselves, and so on. We want people who have established scaling businesses, meaning it's not an idea, right? But they're seeing success and they're looking to grow from there. But if you have folks at too far opposite ends of the spectrum, a member with, 120 employees and somebody who has an idea about starting a new business and hasn't gotten off the ground yet, that's not really a good two-way street of knowledge exchange. So those ends of the spectrum aren't a good fit. Our members are within a certain range, size-wise, to see that good shared knowledge.
Thank you. So do you suggest that, for example, people that are making like 9 figures, they should stick together in a mastermind? People that are making 6 figures, so you could have like 6-figure masterminds, 7-figure masterminds, 8-figure masterminds, and so on, because that will be more conducive to productive masterminds.
So that is one of the numbers to look at for sure, sort of where that revenue range is. But what's interesting is you can have businesses that are 5 people doing millions a year, and you can have businesses that are dozens of people doing 6 figures a year, right? So, it's a number to look at, but there's other factors we look at as well. So if, for some members, we find that their challenge is hiring and retaining, right? Others, it's lead generations. Others, it's sales channels. Others, it's product launch. So really, everyone sort of has different strengths and weaknesses, and we look to balance that out within the room. So revenue is a metric to look at, but we look at the other factors as well.
Thank you. How often should a successful mastermind meet? And what does the typical session look like in terms of the actual structure? Is it that everyone speaks for 2 minutes? Is it that everyone writes down their goals for 2 minutes and then everyone gets the opportunity to share it? Because I found also, if you have a certain number of people, it could be actually not working because there's maybe too many people in that group, and then not everyone gets the opportunity to properly share. The other thing I noticed as a problem is that when, let's say, some people speak too much, even though you put the deadline of, okay, you only speak 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then the feedback tends to be 20 minutes or half an hour. So what's the good way to actually manage all of these different factors?
Yeah, that's a really pointed question there, which I love, because I've, like I mentioned, been in many mastermind groups over the decades and seen formats that work in different ways, right? So on one end of the spectrum, like we were talking about, are these high-end destination mastermind groups. You might get together 2 or 3 times a year. You're writing a 5 to 6 figure check once a year just to get out of the office and hang out with folks for a few days. And those groups usually at the high end are like 20-ish people. Right? But you're spending a few days behind closed doors, and those groups are hugely valuable. But you're also away from the office for an extended period of time, right? It's a significant financial investment, And the cadence, if you missed one meeting, it could be 9 months between meetings for you. I mean, in 9 months, you can have a baby. In 9 months, you can build and sell a business and launch a whole new business. So that cadence is just too far apart, I've found. On the other end, those coffee house or accountability groups we were talking about that might meet once a week, maybe you're only getting together for 30 to 90 minutes. You really can't dive deep. So we found that sweet spot is meeting once a month for a full day of working on the business. Now, in terms of what happens, it's important to me as a facilitator to make sure each member has a dedicated hot seat during that day, right? Part of that is timekeeping and keeping everyone on track. Part of that is facilitating the conversation that if I see that a member is working towards a question they want to ask, but the group is latching on to something else, but that's not what the member wants, we have to guide that conversation so the member is getting answers to the questions that they need answers to and is getting time to share sort of where they're at and what's going on. What's nice is during a hot seat, it's not just a one-way presentation and then we open the floor to Q&A. It's a conversation, right? This is when we look around the room, the most notes and the biggest aha moments I see again and again are actually during other people's hot seats, not during an individual member's personal hot seat. That's where they get answers to the questions they do have, but the big ahas are actually from outside that session. So facilitating that conversation, connecting the dots is really, really valuable to making sure every member gets value from that day and has a chance to get those gold nuggets from every single one of those presentations.
Thank you. How do you ensure you have the right number of members to make sure that everyone gets to go to the hot seat and get their questions answered?
Yeah, so if you're going to go to a mastermind group and expect to be a fly on the wall, right, just observing quietly, you're going to get way less value than if you actively participate. So we actually screen for members who actively participate. And that means a few things, right? One, it means that during other members' hot seats, you're actively asking questions, right? And sharing resources and providing that advisory. And two, it means during your own hot seat that you have thought through where you need help and that you're presenting and sharing what's really going on and seeking questions and having that conversation. So we want involvement. Right? So to your question around group size, to make sure we have that involvement, it means we really max out at around 10 to 12 people in a room at a time. Beyond that, we can't have a meaningful conversation on everyone's business. And on the smaller side, if the group size is too small, you don't get that diversity and range of inputs and ideas. Because what's beautiful is, again, everyone in the room is seeing success in their own way, albeit they're on different paths that got them there. So if someone's struggling, for example, on getting more leads into their business, right? When you have a good volume of people in the room, people can share their strategies of what's working well for them and their business, and it's going to be a range of strategies. And that's so beautiful to see, because for a person to hear different ways to get to their goal, they're going to find strategies that resonate with them and strategies that are uncomfortable. And they can then choose from a variety of ways to meet their goal versus being told there's only one path. And usually when you work with just a coach or a mentor or a book or expert or speaker, they're going to tell you one way to get there. A true mastermind group shows you multiple ways to get to where you want to be.
Thank you. What's the best time for a hot seat?
So if you're looking for when you want to have that dedicated time to talk about your business, it's truly, I feel, at each meeting, every member has a chance to have their hot seat. I know in other mastermind groups, sometimes it's only a few folks get to share, but if we don't have a chance to check in with you and hear what's going on in your business, then we're robbing you of that opportunity to celebrate your successes and get help where you need it most. As an entrepreneur, we've always got that mountain in front of us of to-do items. We always have a vision. We always have a destination we're going to. And it's really easy to lose sight of all that we've actually accomplished and done. So when you check in with a group and we hear about where you are on your accountability and we get to celebrate those wins you've had along the way, it's a good reminder to you that you're not just working, you're not just busy, but you're actually getting results. And it's really easy to lose sight of that. So it's important to me in terms of timing to make sure everyone has a chance for the hot seat. And whether that's in the morning or the afternoon or whatever point during the day, it's important that it just happens during the day at some point. And as a facilitator, we make sure we switch off and mix up who's in the morning versus after lunch versus in the afternoon and so on.
Thank you. I was referring more like in terms of time frame. So would you say a hot seat time frame? Is it like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then maybe the audience gets the opportunity to kind of give their ideas for another 10 minutes or whatever? Or do you have like a specific time frame for the hot seat?
Yeah. So in terms of how long a hot seat is,
Yes. How long?
yeah, generally an individual member's, hot seat, which to us is not just the presentation, but it's the interactive conversation, is typically anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, right? That time frame gives you enough time to go through the items you want. Some members prepare like a presentation, right? Others just have a document of, check mark items. Others have a sheet of paper, right? It all depends. But the more organized you are, and we help you with that organization before you join for a test drive, the more organized you are, the more you can get from the meeting. Otherwise, if you're talking off the cuff or off the top of your head, you realize after your hot seat that you forgot to mention this or that or get input. So a little bit of prep work can help you to get the most from your time.
Thank you. How do you ensure that every member is both giving and receiving during the mastermind?
Yeah, so it's interesting. In my years of facilitating, I've seen, different personality types, right? Some folks like myself are passionate and outgoing and have ideas and want to share. And there are other folks who are more deeper thinkers. And, I'll never forget, looking around the room and seeing some members who, when they're getting feedback, they sort of sit back, they're looking up. And to me, I'm taking that as, as resistance and not being open to the idea. But what I learned years ago is these are our deeper thinkers, right? These are the folks who are processing. And even though it seems like they're quieter, it's being internalized. And then they come back the next month and they've actually implemented and executed, right? So just because someone isn't outwardly, gregarious doesn't mean they're not internalizing and implementing. Other folks are scribbling down pages and pages and pages of notes, but might not get much done. Other folks might write down 3 things, but they're profound and they get them all done. So in terms of what I look for, I've learned over the years to see these different, archetypes and different personality types, right? And what is important to me between meetings is that we see implementation, right? So the notes are good, but I want to see people actually get things done between meetings because that's how you move your business forward. And then part of my job as a facilitator is to connect those dots. Having that longitudinal relationship with individual members lets me see that where a new member might be in their business, other members might have been in the past. And so I can turn that conversation to ask a member to remember, 3 years ago, you were facing this in your business. Can you speak to what this member is going through right now? And so part of that facilitation role is connecting the dots and helping folks to lend expertise, provide that diverse range of input, right? And get the answers that folks need. If they're not stepping up to do it on their own, I can help to draw that out as needed.
Thank you. Would you say that having a mastermind of 10 to 12 people is the optimum number of people you should have in a mastermind? And if that's the case, how do you handle people who don't turn up? Because let's say if someone is ill or whatever, then in that specific month, instead of having 12 opinions, you have 9 or 8 or whatever, depending on, people take holidays or whatever. Is there any way that you encourage, incentivize, or force people to actually turn up to the masterminds in the same way that, for example, BNI does?
Yeah, it's funny because, over the years of doing this, we certainly see seasonality. During the summer, folks tend to travel more, right? Kids are out of school, vacation destinations and so on. As we get into fall towards the new year, we have folks who are buckling down and working on their goals, and we have a higher attendance rate. It's just like an interesting seasonal trend I've seen over the years. So look, we're entrepreneurs, right? We have conferences we go to, we take vacations, we travel extensively. These are all good things. So, our members know our calendar well over a year in advance for when the meetings are, right? And so they can plan accordingly. But the fact is, not everyone is at every single meeting. Even myself this summer, we were traveling for 9 weeks. So that's okay. We can do that and still have successful meetings. So in terms of enrollment for the group, we look for a max of 12 members in a group, right? And that gets us generally 7 to 10 people in the room at a given time, just because of everyone's travel schedule, calendar, and so on. And that's okay, right? It's rare we'll have that full boardroom table, because if it is, we've got a jam-packed day. And then that question you had earlier, now we're looking at like 20 to 30 minutes per member. And we've got to really be on point, on the schedule.
Thank you. I find that quite interesting that you've capped the number to that particular number. So I wonder whether there's a reasoning to that. Is it because that's the only way every entrepreneur will get the biggest value?
Yeah, so I've been in groups where we have like 20-ish to 25 members, but those require 2 days, right, to make sure everyone gets that hot seat. And those are the kinds of groups that meet a few times a year, right? So there's enough things I don't like about that format that has told me the smaller group size makes sense. I've also been in things that have called themselves a mastermind where like it's over 100 people. And what you end up with in that format is people break off into round tables. So you still have a ballroom and people get together at a round top table of like, 8 to 10 people. Now, that's valuable in its own way, but is that truly a mastermind, right? When you come back to the meeting again a few months later, again, that group I think met times a year, 4 or 5 times a year, you're suddenly in a different mix of people, right? You don't have that continuity with the same people again and again. So the 100 format, I don't really call it a mastermind. It was valuable, but not from that standpoint. The 20 group, you can only meet a few times a year and it needs to be 2 days, right? The 3 or 4 people size group, those are usually more your weekly accountability. So that sweet spot really I found is that cap of 12 members in a group, which gets you your 7 to 10 people at a meeting, but it's the same faces and you have that monthly cadence. That's really where I found that sweet spot to be.
Thank you. I'm wondering about the format from this perspective. Now, imagine that you're going to have a mastermind of 9-figure entrepreneurs, or let's say 8-figure entrepreneurs. And imagine you as the facilitator. You are not an 8-figure entrepreneur. So I wonder whether do you do the facilitation in the sense of do you actually actively give the advice about, have you considered this? Have you considered this other thing? Or do you just facilitate in the sense of, okay, Pedro, give us, what do you need help with? And then it's the audience that kind of pitches in and says, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried the other? I wonder how it works.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I found masterminds can fall into sort of 2 buckets. One are like the guru expert led, and one are this is the more peer advisory, right? The guru expert led, we've all seen before, have someone is an expert on a topic, they come out with a book, you buy the book, then you take their course, then you go to their live event, and they kind of move you up this ladder of ascension. And the next natural thing for their business model is to have this high-end mastermind, right? But people are enrolling in that mastermind to be around that expert. Who cares who else is in the room? You want to be with that expert to be more like them. And those are valuable, yes, right? The other is the peer advisory, expertly led, but with peer advisory, okay? So beyond those 2 categories, there are also coaches that are out there. And pick your favorite sport. If you look at the best coaches in that sport, right, it's not because that soccer player or that football player or whatever is an expert in that sport themselves, but they know how to coach someone to be the best that they can be. So you can have a facilitator who themselves doesn't have, say, a 9-figure business, but has worked with people to grow their business there, and that's valuable. But that's not going to be that guru expert led. That's when you are in a room of people who are like you and who are looking to go and grow there. I think back to just the other week, I was out for a run with a friend of mine who happens to be, who knows coaching, right? And is he the fastest runner out there, the best runner? No, but as we're running, we're getting towards the end of our run, he looked over at me and he said, Jeremy, your core is collapsing. And I don't even know what that means. So I look at him, with a furrowed brow, and I'm like, my what now? And he's like, your core is collapsing. So I like make some adjustment and he's like, no, more from your glutes. I'm like, okay. And I try something. He's like, no. And he shows me. And so we go through this very quick over 20 seconds iteration of what I thought he meant and so on. And then I ended up fixing my form. I didn't feel different from the start of my run to the end in terms of my form. And looking at myself, I didn't see it. But somebody else, third party, looking at me without those blinders on, saw a shortcoming, saw what I couldn't see, and was able to provide input and then help me rapidly iterate and get a better result. Not because they were the world's fastest or best runner, but they had that perspective and had seen other runners and helped other runners to improve, and that helped me to improve as well. So you can find a guru expert-led group, you can find a group led by someone who's where you want to be, or you can find a carefully curated group of people who are on that same journey as you are and who want to go and grow where you are.
Thank you. Do you find that, for example, when you have 9-figure entrepreneurs, 8-figure entrepreneurs, it's actually harder to get them to join something where they have to pay a considerable amount of money rather than someone who is like on a lower level where they're actually more willing to invest in something like that. That's been my experience. Has this been your experience as well, or no?
So it's a little bit of the opposite I've found, and that is the whole country club model, right? There was somebody I knew who he did like wealth advisory, right? And he built up quite a good practice and decided he wanted to do a destination event for his clients. So he decided it was going to be a cruise, and he was looking to line up speakers to who's going to speak and what workshops they do. And what he found is all of his clients were like, yeah, we don't care about the workshops. We're just excited to go on a cruise and hang out with people like us. And so he had this great event. And afterwards, he was talking to his clients, sort of did a feedback survey. And what he found was a lot of his clients were like, he gave him the feedback of, this was great. We know that your clients are people with $1 million net worth and higher, but like, that's not us. We want to hang out with the folks $5 million net worth and higher, and not that riffraff. It'd be cool to hang out with just people like us. So the following year, he did 2 cruises, one for those higher net worth individuals. And he got that same feedback again of folks saying, hey, this was really good. Love the $5 million net worth and up line, but like, we really want to hang out with people at 25 and up, not this riffraff of 5 and up. And so it was just really funny that what he found was there was really this country club model of people want to hang out with people like themselves. And oftentimes that entry fee is what helps to separate folks. Because if you too can afford to pay, $50,000 a year to be part of a group, you're with people who also can afford to pay that, right? And that starts to striate your market or who that group is, because you won't have that startup business owner because they can't justify that expense. Those who can justify that investment, right, are people more like you.
Yes. I mean, in my experience, what I've found is that it's just harder to get someone that's like 9 figures to invest, for example, coming to an event. They expect actually to be paid to be there. And let's say someone who is 8 figure, 7 figure, 6 figure, they're more willing to actually pay to hang out with someone who is like 9 figure or someone who is like a billionaire and so on. So I find that quite interesting, because I actually thought, if you're a billionaire, you'll be like, okay, it's 500 pounds to come to this event. The hell, I'll be there. So
well, yeah. So it's funny you talk that way, right? What we found is, depending on what stage of business you're in, and more importantly, where you want to be going, determines what's going to motivate you to do something, right? So for example, the size, businesses we work with, they're established, successful in their own right, growing businesses that want to scale up, right? So there's a team in place, there's revenue and all that. So we had someone who found our group that, he had it's like 130 employees, right? Multiple locations, very successful growing business. And so business owners talking about adding on a new sales channel, this guy was like, I have a C-suite. I have people who do all that. He was looking for the camaraderie. He, as an entrepreneur, was lonely because it's lonely at the top. How else people who get you, who know what it's like to be an 8 or a 9 figure entrepreneur? Those aren't your neighbors, right? Those aren't your friends. And so you don't have someone to share the successes, wins, and challenges with. He was honestly looking for camaraderie, right? Companionship, people to be on that journey with him. He wasn't looking for the growth scale and all the rest of that. So if you find someone who's at 8, but they're hungry and they want to get to that 9, then you can make sure they're with people who want to grow and scale. If you got someone who is at the billionaire level, but they're not looking to be, more than that, they are looking to hang out with people who get them, who are sharing those same challenges. How do I manage C-suite compensation? How do we move towards exit and so on? They're not saying, how do I improve my PPC marketing? They got people for that, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Can you tell me, do you have like multiple groups of masterminds? So for example, let's say, do you have a mastermind that's only like, most of them are making, let's say 50K a year or 100K a year. Do you have other groups that are like 7-figure entrepreneurs, others 8 figures, others 9 figures, others, I don't know, mums in business or whatever?
Yeah, no, that
specialize only in one type of mastermind.
Yeah, so going back to our roots, it was very much about a very certain specific size business. We were looking for $500,000 and up in revenue, an established team, so it wasn't just a solopreneur, and all the rest of this. But we would have folks who were finding us that were earlier stage, and so we would always look, I love it. I've been there myself, right? We all have. So what we would do is tell folks like, hey, here's some great resources. When you're bigger, come on back. But we had folks who kept saying, no, Jeremy, I really do want to connect with other people and grow. But what I found, and this is a lot of what we've been talking about on this episode, is that the questions people ask when they get stuck are different at these different types of businesses, right? And what I found specifically with these earlier stage startups is they were asking far more how do I questions, right? They were asking, how can I start with marketing, or where do I find this, or what is this? Whereas an established business was doing it. And they were saying, how do I do this thing better? Or here's what's working, or here's the thing I tried that didn't work, right? So the earlier stage founders needed more mentorship and needed more guidance, right? And needed more of those resources, versus the established growing businesses were more doing peer advisory of what was working and what's not. And so that led to us starting off our founders group, which is a different format, different investment level, different, structure entirely. And that really led us to having more than just that one group, and has led us to have, groups for different size businesses.
Thank you. For entrepreneurs looking to join a mastermind, what do you suggest they choose as the right fit for them?
Yeah, it's important to make sure that not just that, a group is a fit for you, but that you're a fit for the group as well. So one of the things that we really pioneered that we have not seen any other mastermind groups do is this idea of a mastermind test drive, right? For you to hear about a group and then write a substantial size check to join a group you've never had a chance to, explore, is a blind process that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a lot of blind faith there, right? So the whole test drive process allows you to, for a smaller investment of time and money, try out a group one time for a day, right? And that lets you see if you're a fit for the group and if the group is a fit for you. So that's something that we always recommend. But it's important, like in anything else, to understand what are the requirements to be in a group. And if the only requirement is that you can fog a mirror and you have a credit card, that might not be the right group for you. You want to make sure that there is a screening process, that a group is looking for the right kind of member to be part of the group, because you want to know that the group is going to be comprised of folks who are at a similar stage and that are actively growing and building their business. And you want to interview the facilitator as much as they are interviewing you to look for that fit, so you can see firsthand, experientially, if a group will be a fit for you longer term.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.